Welcome back, Rob, to the Beyond Condition podcast. We've had you on before as a guest and also when we were doing YouTube videos. So it's really cool to have you back.
Thank you.
And it'd probably be quite a cool opportunity for you to introduce yourself and what you do generally, and then how that relates to the bodybuilding industry as well would be a really cool way to start.
Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for having me back again. It's like being with family.
Yes.
It's like visiting family here. I've been on this podcast so many times. So for those who don't know, I'm Coach Rob, as I'm affectionately known as. I'm a high performance mindset coach, stroke life coach, stroke whatever coach, you know. I don't really like titles per se, more about high performance. So I'm like a life coach that specializes in human behavior and the mind, etc. So I work with a lot of business owners, small business owners, and sports people and individuals, and fundamentally to help them to really just go from where they currently are in life to where they really want to be. So ultimately, with, especially in this case, sports people and things like that, my job really is to cover every facet of every area of their life, because to perform at the very, very top in performance as a sports person, you've got to not just have that sport covered off, you've got to have every area of your life covered off, because if your personal life is in turmoil or your financial world is in turmoil, it will affect performance. It creeps in and it just takes, even if it's only 5%, that 5% could be the difference between winning and losing. So I'm the guy who gets called in to sort shit out. And that's it really. So I look at everything. And when I work with people, I tend to start now with what I call a life audit. And we go through a 21-point touch point where we look at 21 areas of their life, from finances to sleep, to food, to everything, you know, family, relationships, interpersonal relationships, kids, the lot. And we look at every area and score that out of 100. And then we start looking at how we can improve and what's holding you back, looking at the brain, the mind, why it's holding you back, and then look at how you can make it work for you instead of against you. And we start off by understanding the theory of all that, so you understand how it works and what it does. And then once you've got an understanding, then we start doing the practical applications as to what can you do to overcome whatever it may be that's holding you back, limiting beliefs and things like that, mindset blocks and such like. So so I cover all the spectrums, and it's pretty much the same for whether someone's in a business or it's just an individual who comes to me and they just want to improve their lives in general. It's all the same, because for me, everything, no matter whether it's business, sports, individuals, whatever, everything starts here. Everything starts with the mind. So once you can control your mind, you can then control your life, your sport, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I'd imagine you work with people for quite a long period of time sometimes to unravel all of these separate things. It takes time.
Yeah, definitely. You can't change human behavior, unfortunately. Well, I'm going to contradict myself. You can change it literally overnight, but it's very, very, very difficult. And it's even more difficult to change it overnight and then maintain it, because the old behavioral habits and patterns click back into place, because that's what they're designed to do. Now, if you get, you know, ideally, I work with most people for a year. Some of my clients been with 3-4 years, but ideally a year to six months is the minimum, really. But you can change overnight, especially if it's something super traumatic happens or super motivational. You know, people look at a lot of ladies out there, they'll have a child, they'll get pregnant, bang, they stop smoking of 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can make behavioral changes if there's something major happens, because it shifts something in the brain and it makes those changes happen. But in normal everyday life, doing those sort of things, making big life changes like that is usually very difficult. So there's obviously a hell of a lot more that goes to it. So it takes longer.
Yeah, for sure. Because when you're thinking about growth mindset, you know, a lot of people, like you mentioned there, about limiting beliefs. We have these inherited limiting beliefs from childhood, teenage years, and sometimes people aren't even aware that these things are holding them back, especially when it comes to things like competing.
Absolutely. And there's so many factors and facets to that is holding them back, and they don't even know. And it's only when we start working together that some of these things start to come to the forefront, and they realize that actually there's a hell of a lot more going on than just what they thought was, and why they brought me in. I mean, a lot of people I work with bring me in and don't even know why they brought me in. They just know so-and-so's had you and they said you were great, so I just want you, and that's it. And then we start working together and we start to unravel this stuff that's going on in their worlds, and they're like, oh my God, I didn't even, you know, and you don't actually realize until you start looking deeper under the hood. You know, it's a bit like driving a car. You can be plodding along with your car and think it's okay, and then, like we all do, you take it for an MOT and it fails, and you go, oh my God, I didn't even know there was anything wrong, and it fails on like 3 things, and you're like, oh God, I've got to fix this, and this. And it's only when the mechanic got under the hood that these things came to light. And that's kind of how I am. Once I get under the hood, under the brain as such, you start to realize, oh, what about this? What about that? What about the other? Oh, when you're talking, you're saying this a lot. So there's something going on there. What's happening there? Oh, well, I just don't think that I can do this, or I don't believe I'm going to do that, or, you know, and it all starts to flood out. So then we start to unravel that stuff, because that stuff is making a difference, and it might be making a difference in tiny areas of their bodybuilding world. So it could be just their self-belief about whether or not they can win. It could be their self-belief. It could be just their beliefs about eating. It could be their beliefs about training and how good they are and how much they can do and how far they can push themselves. And they might not have even had that internal conversation. They might be just going to the gym every day, coming out, going to the gym, coming out, thinking they're doing okay. But then once we start talking about it and everything, they realize they're massively underperforming, and they have huge amounts of potential trapped in there that they never even realized that could come out. So yeah, it's a whole minefield once we open that bonnet, so to speak. Yeah,
particularly I'd imagine for first timers. Steff and I are aware that, you know, a lot of our listeners are first timers, and I, speaking from experience, you know, at first you just think, where do I fit in this industry? Can I even do a prep? Can I even get on stage? Especially if you're not from any type of background that involves, you know, exposing yourself as such. So it's a massive thing, even stepping on stage.
Absolutely. And there's so many people out there who want to step on stage, but they've already talked themselves out of it. They've got massive limiting beliefs about that. And they've already got that internal dialogue that's saying, I'm not good enough. There's no way I deserve to be up there. My body's not as good as theirs, all this sort of stuff. So they haven't even got there. And then there's those who are on the way to that journey, on the way to their first maybe stage show or whatever. And all these things are starting to creep up as they're getting closer and closer. Or maybe at this time of year, they're in their middle or early stages of prep, and they're thinking all these massive amounts of negative things are flying around in their head now, or their prep isn't going as planned and it's harder than they thought. So there's all that sort of stuff that's holding them back as well. So there's a whole plethora of things that can start to derail you as such in this game. And it's important to understand that and then be able to get over it. And that's what gives you that edge, you know, that extra, you know, 10% that can make the difference in placings.
One of the things that a few of my clients or people that have, you know, I've had consultations with or discussed in the gym about starting a goal like this has been the fear of what other people think. So I've got one particular example in my head, which is, so a family scenario where mum and dad or mum or, you know, another family member may look at a goal like this and frown upon it because it doesn't fit their narrative of, you know, what's acceptable or what's etc. And I've actually had a couple of girls, you know, have real difficulty and sort of, I suppose, a bit of a tussle with like what they should and shouldn't do based on those examples. I mean, how would you, or what sort of thoughts or advice would you give about that? How to deal with it?
Do what makes you happy.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Very simple. Listen, it's a big one and it's a common one, that one, this dichotomy, this tussle between what your friends and family are saying, and some of them just look at it and it's disgusting, why do you want to do that? And there's all sorts of things that can come out. And I've had people say, oh, my family are just saying, why are you putting all your energy and time into this? You should be studying and and doing that, or focusing on your career. If you put that much effort into your career, you and all the rest of it, because we know how much it takes out of you to do bodybuilding, and the time, the effort, and everything else. Listen, it's simple. I tell people you've got to, and this is stuff, again, when we go through that sort of 21-point touch point, it's also there to help me to try and find if this is what they really want to do.
Yeah, that's a massive one. It's like, what's the reason for wanting to do something like this?
Yes. And quite often most people think, yeah, no, I want to do it. Obviously I want to do it. That's why I'm here, right? And then when you start working with them and you go deep, it starts to bring cracks out, and actually they might want to do it, but they want to do it for the wrong reasons. So then that starts to make them question their own thoughts and narrative about what they're doing. So it's super important that we go deep on this, because this game's too hard to play about with a little bit. Even as a hobby, you've got to really enjoy the hobby. You know, it's not an easy hobby. It's the same thing I talk about with boxers, for example. You don't do boxing as a hobby if you just want to have a bit of fun. You know, you still, even if you're not thinking you're going to be a British champion or win a local area thing or anything, you still don't do it unless you just love the training and everything, and you want to have maybe one fight or two fights just to say you did it. Then fair enough, you know, go training, do a bit and all that. But anything more than that, it's too serious. Very much like bodybuilding, you've got the dieting side of boxing. You've got, you know, most boxers walk around couple of stones, even at least under the weight they walk around at. So they'll box at a couple of stones under that weight. So you've got heavy duty dieting, you've got training that is intense and unbelievable, and it's hard. It's a 7-day-a-week thing, you know, because when you're not training, you're still thinking about it. It's all consuming. So you've got to want this thing, and bodybuilding's the same. So you've got to really ask yourself the question, if you're new in bodybuilding, you've got to really ask yourself the question, do I really, really want to do this? Or is it something that someone in my circle or somebody I follow who I respect does it, and I just think, you know, it'd be really cool to be up on stage, I'd look really cool, and all my friends would think I was cool, but the journey is too much for that. There's loads of other stuff you could do and be cool that's easier. Go buy a handbag or something, I don't know, you know, there's, you know, spend $6,000 on an expensive handbag, you'll look cooler than going through the brutality of bodybuilding, you know. So you know, there's lots of things,
and it's like that sort of I always think that when you make it, I think we spoke about this last time, but it's good to say it again, is when you make a change yourself, it holds a mirror up at other people's insecurities, because when somebody close to you or somebody you know starts to really fundamentally change parts of their life, whether that's they've got rid of the guy because he's no longer you know, serving positive relationship in their life, or they've woken up one day and decided, okay, the job's no longer keeping me motivated, and you know what, I'm going to take action and do something about this. And the same with bodybuilding, I decided to change my entire physique. Whether you get on stage or whether you don't, that actual transformation of your physique shows such huge focus and determination, which effectively, I think, I may be generalizing here, but a lot of people are so scared of making that change that when someone else does it, it's like, do I celebrate this? Do I tell them it's wrong? Or what does that say about me? And all these kind of things come up. And I suppose the question I'm asking out of it is, how do you deal with somebody who maybe pretends they're supporting with a goal, or maybe starts to show something that is negative and not positive when you start to make a massive change in your life?
Yeah, that's a good point you made there. I mean, a lot of the times with stuff like this, it does bring up insecurities of other people, especially your friends, and it can highlight often the lack in them, you know, of they've achieved or what they're doing or whatever it is. And it brings out some hidden jealousies or stuff like that. Now, you've just got to find out what it is. You know, if there is a big negative towards you doing this, you've got to dig a bit deeper and find out what it is. And normally it's different on a level depending on where they are in your kind of circle. So you've got family like mum and dad, theirs tends to be on a very protective level, and it tends to be more about waste of time, and they don't see the value in it. They see all the heartache and pain you're going through, but they don't see the value, because for parents, it's all about either qualifications or money or some kind of stability for the future. And
it's like their generation thinking, trying to enforce that on you. Yeah,
it's just like, this is just like, it's preposterous. It's like, why do you want to do that to yourself and then look skinny as a rake and go and parade on stage with next to nothing on it? They don't even get it. So sometimes it's that, but then you've got other people in your circle that are nearer maybe your age group and everything else, your friends, and that can bring up feelings of inadequacy. It can bring up feelings of jealousy, all sorts of stuff from them about you, because their remit is not normally about your well-being in the future. Their remit, unlike your parents, their remit is more like just saying things like, oh, I don't want you to get let down, or, you know, it's this, it's that, which comes from a place sometimes of that inadequacy or jealousy or whatever, and seeing you do really well or look really good, or like you saying, transform your body and make it look great. And they might be unhappy inside with their own body, and you're showing them what they've not been able to achieve. And you look like them, you're about their age, you're similar to them, and they haven't been able to do it. So it like you say, it holds a mirror up and it makes them question themselves. So you've got to find out exactly what the people around you's issue is, if there is one, and then go deep on that, and then try and alleviate that for them, or work around that if you can, because your close friends won't always admit that they're insecure or jealous about it. But once you've been able to find that answer, then you can, I suppose, carry on with their support, or unfortunately without them.
Yeah, well, I suppose some of it's like like I've had to do this just for the listeners. I know a lot of my particular clients, and I know other friends of mine in the industry, have extremely supportive peers and parents. And some have had to really kind of cut away at some of their peer circles because they've no longer had the support, or realized, actually, do you know what, this friend has actually turned out not really to be a true friend at all. And I've seen and obviously had people explain those situations to me. The one with the family is hard because they're your parents. You can't get rid of your parents, right? Like you can't just close the door and, well, I suppose somebody maybe, but if you've got a parent or parents that are really struggling with what you do, it's accepting that you might not be able to change that mindset at all. And I spent a lot of my early years in bodybuilding trying to kind of change the way my mum viewed what I was doing in this realm. She can't get away from that generational sort of, this is not something a woman does. Why are you growing muscles? You know, what does it reflect on her? She's embarrassed almost, you know, of how my journey kind of got going. And I think it was about year 3 where there's like a quiet acceptance. And I know she's proud of me in her own way, but we don't talk about it. We don't have any kind of communication about it. She doesn't come and view my shows, and it's okay. And so it's like a silent almost, we're not going to discuss this, but she knows it's something that's very important to me. And of course, it's now ended up to be my profession, and I'm very, very privileged and happy to be doing what I'm doing. So she could see I'm very happy, but it's just amazing because I think I got to a point where I went, I can't change this. So I need to let go of the want for her to accept this and, you know, all of that kind of thing, and just see her for her own reasons why, and be all right with that.
They're your only options.
Yeah.
They are your only options. There is education in there, and, you know, you can also try to bring people like that who are close to you on the journey with you. So educate them about it, them about the technicalities of it, because sometimes people's dislike of it is because they don't understand it. So if you don't understand it, it doesn't mean anything to you. But once you understand that there is, for want of a better word, a skill to it, the technical side of it, the dieting, the eating, the understanding the nuances of the body, getting down to even amino acids and you know, proteins and muscles and how they work, and ripping down the fibers and why you're building them up. And when you get really technical, then maybe maybe they may respect it a bit more and realize that actually this isn't you just being some grunt in the gym going and that's it. You know, there's an actual science to it. And
have you seen me in the gym, Rob?
Yeah, but there is still science, right? And I think you can turn them around a bit if you educate them a little bit, but it depends on the parent. You know, some people might be a lot brighter and smarter, and they might respect the education of it, the understanding of it, and the nuances of the differences when you've got 15 girls stood on a stage, and how the hell can you even tell the difference? You know, they all look the same.
They all look good.
Yeah, they all look good. And then when you tell them that, you know, look at her shoulder cap, can you see the, and you know, it's little things, and they might then be able to understand what you've done and the work that goes into the gym to tweak that. If you want to, I don't know, bring your upper lat out a quarter of an inch because it's going to make your waist look a bit smaller, and you know, and once you understand the nuances of what you've gone through, maybe, just maybe, they might change. But you know, ultimately your journey, whatever it is about you. So ultimately you're not a child anymore. I believe if you're bodybuilding, you're not a child, you're over 16, so your journey is you. And if you're happy with it, and this is going back again to your why and why you want to do it, and making sure it's yours, not something outside of you. It's got to be intrinsic. It's got to be within you. And if it is an intrinsic why and it's passionate, right, then it doesn't matter. You can't get rid of your parents, like we say, but what you can do is you could spend less time talking to them about it, like you did. And you can spend less time around them. And even if you live with them, you can still spend less time speaking about it and getting into it with them, and just crack on with it, and surround yourself with believers, surround yourself with people who are into it, even if your friends are as well. There's more people, you know, get people on Instagram, get people on YouTube, you know, start hanging around virtually with these people a bit more.
From personal experience with my mum, look, like you said there about education, I used to try and really, really simplify it. So I treat her like she knew nothing about it, and then really, really, you know, come down to the absolute foundation of what bodybuilding is. And we're talking about growth mindset today as well, you know, that I'm trying to challenge myself, that I'm trying to grow, you know, self-development and different aspects of my life that I have improved in bodybuilding. And then, you know, things like in my first prep, my mum was like, I think she was, you know, terrified because I was so lean, and it was the first time. She's thinking, oh my God. And she used to say to me, you look really skinny. And I just said to her one day, Mum, that actually upsets me quite a lot. And now she says, you look really toned. So when I'm in prep and it's the point where she says I look toned, I'm like, okay, I'm stage lean. Because and she just doesn't approach certain things now, you know, like eating. When I go for like a post-show meal after, I just want to enjoy that. And there's been a couple of circumstances where it's like, oh, are you going to eat that? Do you want this? And it makes it such a big thing. And I just want to celebrate with my family and friends. I don't want to think about food where, you know, you've tracked for however long and you've prepped and it's been really hard and you just want to switch off. You know, scenarios like that, the listeners will come across, and it's about trying to be an open and transparent with those people. But it's hard not to upset them sometimes.
Yeah. But it's your journey, and that's part of having a growth mindset. It is understanding that it's your journey and you need to learn and grow and develop and move on, because you can't live under the shadow of your parents forever. So you make choices in life and you go all in on those choices and you own those choices and you live and die by your actions. It's simple as that.
Yeah. I think as well, like doing something like body transformation or choosing a goal, whether it's on the stage or not, it's a really spiritual journey for yourself in the sense, I don't mean in the sense of sort of religion, in the sense of
it should be.
Well, yeah, it could, and it should be and can be. But I guess in the sense that you're taking away certain choices for the sake of you bettering yourself. And like what, you know, if we talk about like emotional eating, you know, when something shit hits the fan, you go down to the shop and you just buy a cake or whatever, you're taking kind of that out of the equation. So it's forcing you to stop trying to find external things for your happiness and to sort of placate what's actually really going on inside you, and to sort of stop and get in tune with yourself. And it's scary, really scary, because when you take the externals out of the equation, you start to go, okay, I'm really hungry today, or I've promised to do this goal, but I'm struggling. Like, I'm really struggling today, mentally, fatigue. I feel a little bit low. And that's the time the most where you need to sit yourself and figure out, you know, who am I and why am I doing this kind of stuff?
Yeah, that is exactly when the why kicks in. And that's where you have to do some very, very simple, basic things. And it might be as simple as go for a walk and get some air and just get out of the house, get out of the kitchen.
Playlist on.
Yeah, anything, whatever it takes. And there's lots of things I've gone through with clients, you know, that works for them, because everyone's a little bit different. They've got different nuances of things. You know, you've got to have these things in the bag first, because when the body goes into that kind of reactive state where it wants to eat or something like that, shit's hit the fan, like you said, and you just want to reach for something to eat, that's where you've got to have your plan of action in place already. You can't then think, because you're not thinking straight, so you won't then make a rational decision. You will go and have that cream cake or whatever it is, make yourself feel better. And these are things that can lead to binging and all the rest of it. And this is why so many people have difficult relationships with food, or people even get into it with that. And that's a whole nother topic to talk about. But again, you know, I've worked with quite a few people on that subject as well. But, you know, it's the growth mindset side of it, is going back to that, is all about why you're doing it. And then having a growth mindset and understanding, you know, okay, what's a growth mindset? It's understanding that you've got to be open. You've got to be open to learning. You've got to be open to change. You've got to be open to critique. You've got to be open to being open-minded enough to take that new information in, but then act on it to develop and grow yourself. There's so many people who can't do that as well. It's incredible. There'll be a lot of people who at the moment have decided to go down this journey and haven't or aren't open to critique or looking at things from someone else's point of view. And you need to be able to do that to be the best, to be at the top echelon of this game. And they're the people I'm used to working with, the people who are seeking the best. So it just depends what you're after. You know, if you just want to, like I said at the beginning, if you just want to enter this competition, have a bit of fun, you know, you're not really bothered about placings, come last, hey, not bothered, then, hey, it doesn't really matter. If that's the case, probably this whole podcast is not for you. You just want to have a bit of fun, and that's fine. And hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with that. You can do that. But like I said before, there are a lot of hobbies that are easier than this one if you just want to mess it out.
Yeah, because when, like, you know, for bodybuilding, it's an extreme sport. But on top of that, when you get judged on stage with not very much on, and it's your physique, and especially for bikini, you know, hair, makeup and things like this, you're being judged on pretty much everything, and you're pretty much as exposed as you could be. So putting yourself in that position, if you don't understand why you're doing it, or if it is just for a little challenge, then like you say, it's probably not the best sport to get into, because that then does delve into, you know, disordered eating and various other. You can't take, you know, what the judges say and your feedback constructively. You're going to find yourself in a very dark place after a show.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's scary.
And you know, I think overall, if you go into this, you've got to go into it with a super open mind and say, do you know what? I am prepared to do whatever it takes to produce and present myself and my body in the best possible shape. And that's just it. It's as simple as that. You'd be surprised. Well, you wouldn't be surprised. You're in the game. How many people are very new to the game, but still act like they've been in it for 10 years. And like, they're not open to changing anything. They're not open to listening to advice from anyone, probably outside of their coach. They think they know it all. They think they've got all the answers, and it's just holding them back. They have not got a growth mindset. You know, that is a closed mindset. So you've got to really be open-minded, and you've got to actively seek out the information as well. There's a lot of people who are in the industry, but are still very lazy in the industry as well. They don't listen to podcasts like this, for example. They don't. So if you're listening, well done. That's one tick of the box. They don't watch certain YouTube channels or whatever. They just stick to one or two things that they know that they liked from when they were probably just training in the gym, and that's what got them into it. And they've got a very closed-minded view of what to do and what bodybuilding is all about. And maybe the person they learned off was a PT or someone like that, but they might be really out of touch or whatever, and they're learning some bad principles maybe or whatever. And by being closed-minded, they're not learning new stuff, new information that could actually catapult them a hell of a lot. So, and you guys know from being in the game, you know, and being experienced as you are, that sometimes you can go and talk to someone else who's been in the game a long time, or, you know, go to a seminar or even change your coach, and almost overnight, everything changes for you almost immediately. So just because you've got a different input and a different eye looking at it, and someone who's probably a bit more experienced or a bit more knowledgeable, or just resonates with you a bit more, can motivate you better, you know, inspire you a bit more. And that's important, that side of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, you come across times when you're working with, say, a bodybuilder and their coach is maybe not aligning with what you would offer as a coach. Like, how would you get around that in those types of scenarios?
Hey, listen, there's loads of times I don't agree with what their coaches have told them, but I'm not a bodybuilding coach. So, you know, it's important that people understand I don't coach bodybuilders in terms of their bodies and training. I'm all about the mind. But yes, coaches can often, should we say, blur the edges of their expertise. They sometimes can get caught up in their own hype, and they can think they're mindset coaches as well, or that they're something they're not. But there's a lot of the top ones tend to know what they're doing, and they tend to understand a lot about mindset. But there's a lot of coaches in the kind of, I'd call it the middle realm, who give really poor advice. They speak poorly to their clients. They're overly hard on them. They diss them hard, and, you know, say, stop being a frigging XYZ, or, you know, get it, come on, you're just being soft, or what, being really hard. And that doesn't work with everyone. There's a lot of coaches out there that don't have a growth mindset, that have one way of working. They've done it for a long time that way, and that's them. They're a one-trick pony, and they don't know how to be a social chameleon with each individual client, and know that one client might really respond to the big stick technique and, you know, being really hard and swearing and hitting them with hard vocabulary. Because if I was a bodybuilder, I would respond to that. I need that. I need someone to be brutal on me, tell me I'm a wimp, get on with it, stop fucking whinging, pick the weight up, stop being a dick, get it lifted. No, I need that. But listen, I boxed for nearly 20 years, and that's the culture of boxing. So my culture, my beginnings was very much, get on with it, come on, you know, it's very tough. So I need that kind of motivation. But some people might need the kind of more arm round them kind of approach, and, you know, you can do it, you've got this, and all that sort of stuff, and the softly approach, and build them, and they still have this internal drive from that, and they can respond to that. It just wouldn't work with me. I'd just be like, if I'm laid on the floor after a set knackered, knowing I've got one more to go, and the coach is going, come on, Rob, you've got this, mate. You can do another one. I'd be like, no, I can't. I'm shattered. Leave me alone. Yeah, I need him to give it. I respond to that. But a good coach should be able to read me and know very quickly after working with me that that's what I need, and give me that. But he should also then conversely be able to have his very next client in straight after who responds completely the opposite way, and be able to deliver that and do it. And there's a lot of coaches that just can't do that. They can't flip the switch, and they literally, I've had lots of clients talk to me about coaches that have just done their heads in. They just said, I can't work with this person anymore. They're brutalizing. I'm going home crying and feeling terrible. That is horrendous. And as you know, as bodybuilders, and any coaches that are listening to this, if it's resonating with you and it's you know, you're shouting at the device that you're listening to this on right now. Maybe you're being triggered because I'm touching a nerve, but I won't take a word of it back. The bottom line is you must change, and you just don't see the other side of it. And if you did see the other side of it, you probably just call out your client and say, they're just being a pussy, or they're being weak, or whatever, you know. And it's just old school way of coaching. You're so out of reach, it's unreal. You've got to be able to read the client, see what works for them, and then give them that kind of inspiration, motivation, whatever it takes to get them to that next level. Even if it doesn't sit well with you, you've still got to do it.
Yeah, that's social chameleon coaching perspective is just, I can't even tell you how important that is. You're absolutely right. It's like you need to know when to take the hard approach and when to take the slightly arm around the shoulder approach. It's to get somebody through a goal like this. You know, at the end of the day, we have to remember that it's a very, very, like we've said before, very few percent are going to get to the absolute pinnacle of the top.
1%, yeah.
Yeah. Now, those people, I would imagine, you know, an extreme hard approach will work extremely well. But if you've got a first timer coming into this game and they've got nothing to pitch it against yet, the approach of just like, don't ask me questions, get it done. Don't speak to me unless I've got a check-in at 7 o'clock on this time. You've got half an hour window. If you don't send it to me in that time, I'm not speaking to you. It's like, that is just absolutely catastrophic for that person's confidence, their ability to even do this goal. And yet we see it all the time in this industry, which is heartbreaking. But
I think ego kicks in, doesn't it? And some coaches, like I said, there's a lot in that middle band. I'd like to think that a lot of the very top ones get through it, but I'm not calling no names. But I've heard some stories.
I know.
Let's put it that way.
We all have.
Yeah. Ego kicks in, you know. Let's just say that they believe the hype, and they only have one way of coaching, and they find it very difficult to shift out of that way. And they'd get even better results if they did and could, and they have to understand that, and hopefully they will learn and change. And maybe I might just make one of them think, if they're listening to this. But you know, it's about people, and they have to realize that, you know, when you're coaching people, ultimately it's about people. It's not life and death. This is about people. It's about respect, and it's about getting somebody to go from where they are to where they want to be, and then in the shortest possible way and the easiest possible way for that individual, not for you, for that individual, right? Yeah. So you've got to look at that individual and go, okay, what do I need to make them be able to follow my diet on point? What do I need to make them be able to train like a beast every time they walk in the gym? What do I need to be able to help that individual do the outside of the gym stuff, the things like get to bed on time, get some sleep, rest properly, eat properly. You know, what do I need to do? How do I need to speak to them to do that? And by saying, oh, your checking pictures look shit, what you doing? You're not following what I'm saying, are you? Do you know what? It's just not going to happen for you. You crap. You know, it's not going to work. It's not going to help. You need to find out what's going on. You need to go a few levels deep. And this is where you have to be a bit of a mind guy and go, okay, what's happening? These last couple of weeks, you haven't quite been on point there. And it might just need talking to that individual. You know?
Yeah. I often think a lot of coaches don't like people. And I'm like, well, you're in the wrong game. You're
going to be communicating a lot.
It's like, if you don't want your clients to communicate with you, you're in the wrong game.
Or some go the other way. And again, when we're talking mindset, it's like they get to a point where they get super busy. They've got loads of clients.
Oh, yeah.
And their standard drops massively.
Massively, yeah. I've seen that happen as well.
Yeah. And that's wrong as well. So you've got to be able to have the mindset. And now we've kind of gone off of competitors to the coaches, really. But it's the same. It's all part of it. And it's great advices for new people competing, because I've seen a lot of new competitors with coaches and stay with them 1 or 2 years longer than they should have, just because they feel they owe them or something. And you don't owe them anything. And I just want to actually say on that point, this is a shout out to any new people who are training at the moment, and you're maybe training for your first competition or second, and it's your first couple of years of being in the game. You do not owe coaches anything. right? As soon as you're paying anybody, right? Remember this. I want you, if you're on a treadmill or if you're walking right now, or you're washing up or you're doing anything, I want you to turn this bit up and listen. Those people work for you.
Yes.
Do not think for a minute that their egotistical stance, that they're shouting and talking to you like you're a nobody, a nomad, right? Because they've had a few champions and they've been around a while, right? They work for you. As soon as you have agreed a contract and exchanged money, they now work in your employ, right? And if you don't like the way that they are speaking to you, you should be able to, in a polite, respectful way, say to them, look, I don't really respond very well to that. It'd be easier for me if you could do X, Y, and Z, or just tell me, or just talk to me about it. But shouting at me just makes me go away. And I was crying last night. And as you know, as a coach, the last thing we need is cortisol running through my body, right? Feeling down and all them other negative chemicals flying through me, that's eating away at my muscle because I'm depressed and down. So what would be best for me is to do this, this, and this. And if they respond in any negative way to that, well, listen, this is how I do it. If you don't like it, you know, I've bred champions, get out. Then yes, take their advice, get out.
Yeah.
And go find someone who will. Because it's just shows the limitations of them as a coach. That's all. It's nothing about you.
Yeah.
It's all about them.
Yeah, that's absolutely massive.
Yeah,
I know this is going to be controversial now. Probably get some messages off coaches saying, what you know about bodybuilding, and I'll be like, that's good.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to come and work with me for a while. So we'll see.
It's so true, though. You know, you are in your body. If you're giving over control to somebody else to tell you what to eat, when to sleep, when to get up, when to train, you have a responsibility to also ask questions, be completely in control of your decisions. And you're right, it's a fair transaction, like any transaction you make with another person that is exchange of value or money. You're absolutely 100% within your right to discuss things and ask questions and openly ask for your, like, to guide your coach as well as your coach guiding you, because that's where the magic happens in a perfectly good, respectful relationship between a coach and a client.
And
I can't agree more.
Want that. A good coach should want that.
Exactly.
Ultimately, what does he want? He wants you to do really well so he looks good, so he can get other clients. So if you're then communicating with him and telling him what you respond to best, then that's just making his life easier.
Yeah. Because I've seen it so many times, you know, people even coming over to coaching with myself or with the team, and I've not been able to speak to my coach. It's a huge, massive sentence that I get all the time. I don't feel able to communicate. That's a coaching relationship failed, in my opinion, already. Like, if that's...
Do you know how many times people come to me about their coaches and say, I want to say this, but I daren't tell him this, or I daren't say, and I'm like, what is that? I don't understand. You daren't. What? Your dad? You know?
Because even like as a coach myself, like I'm always asking for feedback. Has this been helpful? Is this useful for you? Is the way we're talking with you know, within this whatever we're discussing in terms of the coaching, you know, acceptable, and do they understand so they can learn as well? You know, it is. I think we could go on. We could probably go on about this forever, but it's
that's a whole nother topic
important.
As well about coaching. It's there's it's almost like an unspoken thing that nobody can talk badly about their coaches. They don't say anything. You know, you'll never see that on Instagram. It's all very
I know.
It's all in whispers in the gyms behind closed doors. But you know, I've just called it out there. Sorry, but you can use that as a soundbite on the podcast to sell it.
Clickbait.
Talking about growth mindset, and you mentioned like a closed mindset. When you do your questionnaires and when you're first communicating with people, is there certain things and characteristics that come up where you can see if they are of a growth mindset or whether they're quite closed and fixed in the way they operate?
Straight away. And over the years, I've gotten even better at reading people. I'm sure we've got an ex-client here, haven't we, of mine here? So I'm sure Steff can vouch for that. I'm very, very good at reading people, but now I like to think I've come on even a lot more since their days. So, you know, what it comes up very, very quickly, who's closed, who's open, you know, and it's just about, again, education and teaching them or showing them how to change and why the brain is doing certain things and how to develop new areas of the brain, new dendrites. Do you remember dendrites?
Yeah, I remember the dendrites.
Yeah, new pathways and things like that. Everything, remember, everything that you're doing now, everything that your listeners are doing, your new the new people to bodybuilding or people new to thing, everything they're learning at the moment, all the things that are holding them back, all the fears, the doubts, insecurities and everything, all of that is learnt behavior, right? So listen, guys, if you're listening, all of that is learnt behavior, and anything that's learned can conversely be unlearned. So you can change anything if you've got a growth open mindset and you are open to change. And if you are, then you can change anything and be more open and adaptable to change and development in terms of your body and the growth of it, your food, your diet, your sleep, everything. Because if you're listening to this and you want to develop and you want to go on and be a British champion or a world's European, whatever, trust me, you have to have those skills. You have to be open-minded. Your body is going to transform over the next 4 or 5 years like you would not believe. You have to go to some dark places to do that. And you have to do that and transition through that, all whilst probably going through relationship situations, financial situations. You might have a job that you've got to hold down or a business. There's so much you got to do. So when you talk about having to have a growth mindset, hey, this is, you know, this, you've picked a brutal hobby. And this is why, again, we've reverted back to, which I always do with people, back to your why. To get through it all, you need a powerful why.
Yeah. Is there certain things that you, like big things that you work on to transition through being fixed into more of a growth mindset?
Well, basically, it's getting people to understand what they are first and foremost, and then getting them to understand how the brain works. So we look at, to begin with, we talk about perspective. So it's about shifting your perspective. And without having time to go into it now, we've all got a fixed perspective on life and what life means to us and what we think it should be, right? So then it's about learning about being able to look at it slightly different and being a bit more open-minded. Just like we're talking about now with coaches that have been around for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, who've got a certain way of doing things, and they would probably be on this podcast now arguing the toss that their way works. Don't care. It's my way or the highway. That's how it is. And that's a fixed mindset. To me, they're not a world-class coach, right? So once you understand that and you can shift perspective, so I start with perspective and we work through what perspective is and what it means, and we start with that, and then we look at human behavior and things like that, and attitudes and mindsets and where your conditioning comes from and how you get there. And again, when we go through that 21-step plan, we look at stuff like that. So once you understand it, so we go through what we call a theory, then we look at the mind and the brain, and then we look at techniques, and then we put all that together and then find out what are the techniques to help with that as well. So by then you start to be more open and more, oh, right, because you get a lot of what we call breakthroughs, oh, wow moments, like, oh, wow, yeah, I used to think that, oh, wow, Rob, yeah, that hit the nail on the head. Oh, now you've said that and realized that about myself. I knew I was a bit like that, but now you said, oh my God, I am a lot like that. Oh my God, you know, and things like that. And it comes up all the time, and it's, wow, there's lots of wow moments like, yeah, I didn't realize I said that much, and you've now made me aware that. And then your mindset starts to change because you start to realize, hey, I need to open up a little bit and understand how what I'm doing, what I'm saying, everything is holding me back. Then your perspective shifts. You open up your perspective and you're more open to the input that you need to do well. And if you want to, like I said, reiterate again, if you want to be a champion in this game, if you want to achieve what only a handful of people have achieved, even in fact, just to get a pro card, you know, there's, I've been working with bodybuilders now over the last six years or so, and there's a handful of them that have got a pro card that I know. And now, I'm not being disrespectful to anyone out there, but they are giving out a bit like confetti at the moment because all those greedy federations want money. But I'm not going to get into that. That's just my thoughts. But they are still hard to get, but they're easier than they were when I started, because when I started, there was literally one per year per division sort of thing. And that was it. You know, there was no 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, you know, getting, you know, so it was one a year. And even now, though, it's still tough. And if you want to get there, if you want to get to pro level, if you want to become a pro, whichever area it is, whichever federation, whichever division, you know, you got to be the best of the best. And that goes back to what we said at the beginning. That's only that 1%, 5% of people that are going to actually get there. And when you think about all the hundreds and thousands of bodybuilders or aspiring bodybuilders out there, you have to be in that top 5%. And that means this as well, your mindset. You cannot get there if your mindset is weak and limited and closed.
I think in the other end of the spectrum, and Steff will agree here, I'd imagine, when you've got a growth mindset, sometimes you can then become so tunnel visioned. It's then what's next, and you're sometimes guilty of not actually sometimes living in the present moment of enjoying life as well as competing. And Steff and I talk about this a lot. You know, you do have a life as well. It's not just Sarah and Steff the bodybuilders. It's, oh, my name's Sarah and I like other things as well. And that's quite hard to sometimes come off that pedestal you put yourself on, that you're tunnel vision towards competing all of the time.
Yeah, and lots of people get like that. And you know what that can make you become as well? Very boring. And you need to watch out for that. There's lots of people like that who are 110% bodybuilding, and they believe, again, closed perspective, right? They believe that that's making them a better bodybuilder, and it isn't. You know, Jack a dull boy as such, right? So you've got to, again, the easy answer to that is get a coach, get a good coach, you know, and they should be able to advise you correctly in that field, and being able to have a work-life blend, right? And as I call it with my clients, I don't call it a balance. I think the days of balance have gone. I think it's blending now. You know, back in my early days, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you could talk about balance more, because a lot of people 30 years ago, they worked a 9 to 5. And you came home and you had time to play with the kids and the missus or the family or whatever, and go to bed at 11. Now, Christ, we've got 24-hour call centers. We've got, you know, all sorts, you know. So life is a blend now. There's people in the gym at 11 o'clock at night. You know, 25 years ago, that wasn't a thing, you know. So life is a work-life blend. So once you blend it and you get that right, you need to get that right to so you don't go insane. You don't just want to be a bodybuilder and nothing else.
Yeah. It's something you do, not who you are.
Yes.
Yeah. And we always try and say, enjoy it. You know, it's sometimes very hard to be able to accept that you can take the foot off the gas at the same time as being the best bodybuilder you can be. You can enjoy it. You can have other elements of your life that contribute to this. You know, like you said earlier, cortisol, you know, are you doing activities that help you de-stress? Are you doing things that give you chances to be very present with your friends, family and loved ones? You know, those types of things are so underrated in bodybuilding, because it is this mentality of, I'm going to war every single day.
Well, that's why so many interpersonal relationships suffer with bodybuilding, and that's why you get what we was talking about before, a lot of pushback sometimes from family about bodybuilding, because a lot of people start bodybuilding and disappear. You know, family, friends, they just disappear off the map, and they then become resentful about your sport because they feel like it's your sport that's took you away. So it's important to have that blend, so that you are there still to, once in a blue, you know, go to the pictures with your mates and have a night out, you know, and things like that. It's just about, when you get into it, especially in the first couple of, it's easy to get excited, and all you want to do is that. You don't want to go to the pictures. You don't want to go out for a drink. You don't want to do anything, because you just want to be in the gym, and you just want to be talking about bodybuilding, doing bodybuilding, everything. That's all you want to do. And it's exciting at first. And when you're watching your body change and everything, it's exciting. You're like, oh my shit, look at me. I look huge. Look, it's amazing. And you love it, right? But you do become boring to everyone else outside. Because if you're talking about the fact that you've ate 120 grams of something and got so much this, that, and the other, and you're taking 12 pills a day and this, that, and it's just boring to the average person. They don't care. They'll support you and say, well done, but after 7 weeks of hearing you talk about it, they're over it. Trust me. Even if you think, and you're sat watching this thinking, no, my friends love it. They love hearing me talk about it and everything. No, they don't. No, newsflash. No, stop. You know, just give them the updates every couple of days. Hey, you know, I'm doing my thing. It's going well. I'm excited. That's it. They don't need any more. Get a life as well. It's important.
And find the right people to talk about it with. You know, like I used to talk to anyone and everyone, like members at my gym. And you could tell they're so glazed over, and I'm there going, yes, I've done this, I've done that. And then I realized it's not because, you know, they don't like me or it's personal. It's because they don't know what I'm talking about half the time. And also, you know, they prefer to hear about other areas of my life that are maybe a bit easier for them to understand. So another message to the listeners, don't take it personally when someone doesn't perhaps pay the attention that you think that they should. You've built it up in your own mind, this amazing thing you're doing. You know, every day I'm doing everything I need to do, but a lot of the time they don't really care. But that's not a personal attack.
And you have to remember, it's your journey, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with other clients of mine, not just even in it's anything. You know, there's clients of mine who start working with me on a life coaching, you know, mission, and they get right into personal development. It might be their first foray into personal development, and they get really into it. They start listening to podcasts and they read books. They start to learn about Les Brown or Tony Robbins or, you know, all these wonderful world's top personal development people. And they get really into it and start telling their friends and family, oh, you listen to, oh, you shouldn't do this, you know, and you shouldn't do that, and start trying to change. They start trying to be life coaches to their friends, and it bugs them. It bores them, Stu. Can you just stop going on about freaking these guys? And you know, people who are not on your journey and not on your journey, it doesn't matter. You just enjoy your journey, and you do it for you, and be the beacon that you want to be. So if you're really big into personal development, for example, and you're big into living a better life and changing yourself and changing your mindset, just do that. And then hopefully your family or your friends around you will see the change and the positive change in you, and they'll want to come on the journey maybe a little bit, and they'll get, oh, what's that book you're reading? It seems to do, you know, that's done very well for you. Let me have a look. And then you can bring them along for the ride, or bodybuilding wise, just get on with it, keep stum, and just fill them in once a week or so. And then after a while, when you start seeing big changes in your body, someone might say, oh, wow, you look really good. What's happening there? What you do? Well, I'm bodybuilding now. I've got a competition coming up in 6 weeks, and we're in what we call prep, which is where you diet down and lose weight to bring out the muscle. Oh, right. That sounds interesting. And now you're letting them lead the conversation rather than you know, giving them this, vomiting this stuff on them that they don't want and never asked for in the first place. And again, like you said, it can affect people if they see people literally recoiling, and it might hurt them. So it's not about you, it's just about them, and it's not that your journey, that's all. And it's no different, I suppose, if I don't know, if I've got a friend who's a librarian who kept coming home to me every night telling me about the latest Toy Stuff book that's coming or something, I'd be sat there glazing over as well. And it would seriously bore me to keep hearing about the latest new books that they've got in, and how excited they are by it, you know. And I'm an avid reader, so, but I'd still be bored.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Love it. Is there, before we wrap up today, is there sort of any top tips or things that we haven't mentioned today? If someone's maybe listening to this and they are thinking that they've got quite a closed mindset, they're quite fixed in the way they approach things, simple little things that they could maybe start to implement and check in with themselves as to how they're progressing to be a bit more of a growth mindset way of thinking?
Definitely listen to more podcasts. Listen to YouTube channels all about, just type, you know what Google's like. Google is your friend. Just type mindset or growth mindset. Just type everything in, a plethora of information. Get a coach. I'm here if you need me. Yep. Maybe not start with me. Maybe start with, I don't know, somebody else. But if you really want to be serious, then maybe start with me. But I'm not here to play. So I'm the results guy. If you come to me, for one, I'm not the cheapest in the world, but two, I will demand results, you know, so I'm not here to play. But education is there. There's a great saying, I can't remember exactly what it is, but fundamentally it says something like, there is no excuse for ignorance anymore in this world. This thing, the mobile phone, has everything, every bit of information in the world in it, you know. So if you want to improve your growth, your mindset, you can literally go on YouTube, go on podcasts, listen, read, learn, study, get Audible, download some books. There's a book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, which is the seminal book on mindset as far as I'm concerned. Great one to start on, and you could read that. In terms of the mindset you need to be a champion, there's a couple of really good books that you can read. One's called Winners, that's just come out, which was by, oh God, I've suddenly just had a mindset block myself.
Mindset.
What's his name? Tim Grover. And, you know, he's the guy who worked with Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and trained them guys. And his book, Relentless, is one that I've had a lot of clients read over the years. And that book is probably for me one of the greatest books to read, that tells you what a champion's mindset is all about and what is needed to have one. So Relentless, and his latest book, Winners, is really good as well. So check them out and start there and build from there. And then if you need any deeper stuff, hook yours truly up and we can have a chat and see where we go from there. But that's all about changing everything for you and taking you to the next level.
Still taking that time, isn't it, to develop yourself? And again, that's something that people just put off. It's like, oh, I haven't got time for that. You need to invest time to be able to improve and, you know, work on yourself and grow.
Most definitely.
Well, thank you for coming on again, Rob. It's been awesome. What a subject.
Always happy to chat about mindset. Always happy.
And if anyone wants to reach out or have a look at what you offer, is Instagram the best place? Instagram
or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm everywhere, but Instagram and Facebook, yeah, I kind of live on those platforms. Rob Lattibeaudiere, L-A-T-T-I, easy to find. And just check me out, drop me a message, say hi. I'm always happy to chat. Or my VA, I've got a virtual assistant. She might be answered, but I will chat with you as well. I'm happy to chat with anybody.
Awesome. Well, thank you from all of us for listening, and we love seeing it on Instagram stories or anything. If you want to hit a review on the podcast platforms, and that is also appreciated. And we hope you've enjoyed it. We look forward to another one in the future with you, Rob.
Awesome.
And goodbye.
Guys, later.
Take care, Rob. Bye, guys.
Bye, Steff.